Ethereum drops over 34% in 3 days, but is this drop going to continue? Will we see $1,000 again, or are we going to see a bounce back up to the upside? Guys, in today's video, we're going to look at the Ethereum charts and do some crucial analysis to work out some bullish and bearish targets for what is likely to unfold in the coming hours and coming days. We're also going to cover a bit of news to find out exactly what it was that's caused this dump and to see whether we're going to find ourselves going further down or whether there's a possible chance of a recovery from here. Guys, if you're new to the House of Crypto, make sure you subscribe and like this video to be kept up to date with all of the latest happening in Ethereum, Bitcoin, and altcoins. Without further ado, let's jump into the Ethereum chart to start with. So here we can see on the 4-hour Ethereum chart, and as I mentioned, guys, we started over here back on the 20th of February, just 3 days ago, and we've fallen and we've come all the way down. We've touched this area around $13.58 to look down at a target of around 33.4% fall. Now, are we going to see this level again? Have we bounced and found the bottom, or are we going to continue to the upside? Now, what I want you to focus on is what might have caused this dump. So at the moment, I want to bring your attention to this, and it's probably a bit of news you might have already seen because it was a couple of days ago that this was launched. Tesla billionaire Elon Musk made a stark Bitcoin and Ethereum price warning as crypto market nears a $2 trillion market cap. So what does that mean? Why was he sort of saying that? You know, many people believe that maybe he's sort of behind manipulating the whole market. But what actually happens, guys, is as we talked about the other day, we were really overbought. So what does that mean? Many people are betting on the price going up and up and up. And maybe we had a little bit of news like this, causes a bit of a dip, and that can cause some of the big accounts or some other people who are leveraged, who are using other people's money to bet on it going up, to get liquidated. And then suddenly this causes a bit of a snowball effect as people get liquidated to a point where the price absolutely tumbles. And we did sort of warn about this happening a couple of days ago. So we've seen this happen. But will this continue? Is this downward trend going to continue? Another thing I want to look at is the DeFi Ethereum drops more sharply, while more than 25 million in DeFi loans is liquidated. Okay, so liquidation, people are losing potentially a lot of money over the last few days as it's been falling down, and all that money then arrives back on exchanges, and the demand for it obviously decreases. So in terms of like supply and demand, there's much more available. When everyone's been buying or longing, there's not so much availability of Ethereum in the market, right? So that pushes the price up, and then suddenly it all arrives back on exchanges, and this can cause things like this. Okay, so pieces of news like that, be very cautious as we hit these like big surges to the upside, guys. It gets more volatile, it gets the potential chances for it to dump like it has done become higher and higher the faster it goes up. Well, but what's going to happen in the coming days? I want to jump over to the Ethereum chart. Currently looking at the 4-hour, and as you can see, we've had this channel we've been tracking for a long time now, the yellow and pink channel. And as we mentioned yesterday, what we might see, yesterday we were looking around this dip here, we saw, and I said that it could potentially if it was going to continue to the downside, it would retrace back up, hit this pink line before coming down further. And lo and behold, it literally did exactly that, and found this previous line of support. It flipped and turned into a line of resistance. Okay, so what does that mean? We then thought that maybe this orange line, the 200 EMA, would hold. Subsequently, it didn't, and it continued to fall further. So then we need to look back historically, guys. And this blue line here, which you can see seeming to be quite a significant line of support so far, is, if we zoom out to the weekly, we can see all back to 2017. This is the all-time high, or the previous all-time high back in 2017. As you can see, came up here and it swiftly dumped down. And actually, there's always the potential that this is not going to stick here and it can come down further, okay? So a lot of people will be telling you, oh, it's all over, but be aware, guys, many people thought that yesterday and it's dumped another couple of $100 since, okay? So always be very careful, with your money. You've got out and you worked hard for it, guys. Don't just throw it away because, you kind of believe that off a bit of speculation that maybe something like this is over. Now, in terms of if we zoom out, so when things get a bit scary, guys, it's always best to zoom out and look at what really is happening. So as we look on the 4 hour, it looks like a pretty scary chart, right? It's just dumped all this way down and it's come off. And what we can see literally now, 1460, this is around 1447, 1450 is that sort of line there. 1461, we're seeing a bit of a bounce. Now, what I would love to see, or what we need to see realistically, is for a 4 hour candle to close above that line and then to sort of see how the next few play out. In terms of whether we are going to be able to sort of continue back on to an upward trend, what we're seeing here is, again, we're coming down, we're retesting. So this is these are now hourly candles, and we've seen a couple of times it's continued to push. Here it pushed, got rejected, came back up, and it's fallen again, and then it's built up. What we really need to see, guys, is a big green candle being put in here, engulfing this one, which would see us move back to the upside. Okay, it's not necessarily going to continue from the upside from there. This could play out sideways for a few weeks, a few days. Realistically, I think if we come back to the upside now, we've got to then get through these previous significant lines of support, which are now resistance because we're underneath them. So this pink line, which has held us in this position for a very long time, this is on the daily. So for the last sort of 3 weeks or so, we've been hitting this pink line, and we've managed to sort of hold it, right? But it's obviously broken. It's a significant line. For us to then break through that again, it's going to be quite a challenge, I sort of believe, right? However, in terms of as a buying opportunity, if this continues and as it plays out, we can see it close 1 hour candles above this 1450 level, then we're looking stronger than we were. Now, one thing I want to draw your attention to is the RSI, which is the Relative Strength Index, and what that shows is when something is overbought or oversold. Now, we mentioned earlier the thing that caused this big crash was perhaps many people longing it and it becoming overbought, which we saw obviously the result of that. We now have anything below this line, which is this 30 line, this dotted line along here, anything below that is very much oversold. And if we come back and we look historically, the times we've even come close to this, we had this dip, we hit it, and we bounced from here all the way back up here. We come lower here, and we've bounced, right? And you can see this is a fairly solid indicator in terms of what's happening in the markets. And in the past, every time we come down towards the 200, we've hit this, and we've sharply bounced out, guys. At the moment, it's probing far down to the deep side. Doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to bounce back. On the flip side, one we can see here, you see it's well and truly overbought. That was here, and yet it continued over time to go back up. So this is also versus time spent. So the longer it sort of remains down there, the more chance it has of moving sideways and perhaps creeping down a bit further. But as we know, guys, there's been a lot of FOMO. One thing I want to look at quickly is the Google Trends for Ethereum. This is the worldwide over the past 5 years. This was 2017. When currently, the amount of people searching for Ethereum and the amount of people learning about Ethereum is a good thing. People are paying more and more attention to it. I know a few people would have had their fingers burned in the last few days who probably weren't really expecting it to happen, but these people are still interested. And a lot of people will see this as a really good opportunity to either buy more Ethereum or to feel like, maybe they thought they missed out before, and now they've got a chance to get in. Now, another thing that we need to be aware of, guys, and something that will help us in the future is this Wall Street cheat sheet. Now, a lot of the feelings you might have been feeling in the last week or so leading up to this point and so on are all kind of expressed here. When things are moving up, we get kind of excited, but when we start to get into this euphoria stage, which we've all been kind of guilty of, I'm sure, and that, if we think back to 3 days ago, we were probably feeling all a bit like this, euphoria, I'm a genius, we're all going to be rich. When things like this happen, then this is when it's all getting a bit scary, because this means it's overbought. This means everyone's in, everyone believes it's going to go long, and that's when the market will come back and bite us. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to dump all the way down here, but it does tell us that this current pattern that we've been in, this big channel, this pattern is over, right? So we need to sort of see how it unfolds, whether we're going to see a bit of consolidation, here, before moving back up. So what we saw on a previous dump here, coming back on the 10th of January, we saw the big fall from 1352 all the way back down to 900. We saw a bit of a few days, a couple of days where we sort of spent some time here before coming back to the upside. Okay, so in terms of what it looks like for Ethereum, actually I believe it's very healthy. Now, obviously, disclaimer: I'm not a financial advisor. Go and do your own research. I'm sure you've had your fingers burned, and a lot of people who may have had their fingers burned might have just taken advice off of a friend here and there. But it happens, guys, and it's a learning curve. And we'll come back and we can kind of look to the upside from there. But every time something like this happens, it makes us feel a bit sad, but we learn from it. Okay. One last bit of bit of news I wanted to look at, not news. So this is the channel we've been tracing, and these patterns. Once we start to identify these patterns, we can start to see things that are happening. At the moment, we've broken out of a pattern. That's why I say we need to wait until we can start seeing new patterns developing before we can give specific targets. But what happened is we came out with our channel. So we had our channel here, the yellow and the pink line, and we've held that. And this channel had obviously an opportunity where on the left, the ascending would be breaking to the upside target, but on the right, literally, as it played out, it came back down, bounced up, and fallen out. And this is what exactly has happened, right? And that, is something to be aware of when we see these patterns in the future. Currently bouncing at the moment between 1450 and 1500. Do I think it's all over for Ethereum? Absolutely not. I believe that Ethereum is a great product. At the moment, bit of problems in the Ethereum fees being super high. I think that the highest they reached the other day were around $29, $29 gas fee on any exchange, which is obviously ludicrous, and that's something that puts off a lot of money coming in. What we need to be able to do is, obviously there's a lot of selling pressure been coming in, but we need big buying pressure to be able to push it back to the upside. So, in terms of how many more times, every time it dips like this, it absorbs the buying pressure. So you see this big candle drop here and the wick, that's loads of buys coming in. And then, it's fallen again and we had a big wick. That can only continue to happen a number of times until, the buyers aren't necessarily there anymore, and then the sellers will come in. However, I think that's not necessarily true. I think we're still in a very bullish cycle, and if we zoom out, it's not the first time it's done it, guys. It might feel like a big shock, and it probably was a big shock for many people. There's various things that are happening, and for the short term, I'm very keen to see it stay above 1450. If it falls below 1450, what are our next lines of support? Well, if we zoom out to the daily, then we've got the 200 EMA. But on the daily, the 200 EMA, we haven't touched that since mid-May last year. Okay, so this is kind of a significant retrace, and actually, what we are also seeing, this red line providing quite a bit of support here as well. So that's obviously a positive thing to be looking at. Okay, guys, if you've kind of like had your fingers burned in the last few days, a lot of it is just people being shaken out. Okay, so in terms of whether I would sell now personally on my terms, if I bought in at like $2,000 or whatever it was, I wouldn't be selling, guys. This is when they want you to sell. Okay, the rich guys, this is when they're starting to buy. They're buying now and they sell at the top when everyone else is thinking, oh, it's going to make me a millionaire, and that's when I'm buying. Okay, so use this cheat sheet, guys, because it's kind of like what I'm kind of thinking actually isn't the right thing. Try and avoid like the emotions of the market, and we look specifically at how the charts are moving, and kind of like almost when we do the opposite of what everyone is thinking, then we kind of get lucky, right? Not lucky, this is when we kind of like do well. So when everyone else is like feeling awful and not really interested, this is when we're looking to buy. When people aren't really interested in something, we're looking to buy. When we're feeling like amazing and everyone's going to be rich, then maybe that's times when we start asking ourselves some questions and thinking that Ethereum's going to be 200k by the end of the year. Might be, but when people start chucking all these like amazing dream story scenarios, like then maybe start asking ourselves some questions whether it's going to be a bit overbought, oversold. Check the charts, look at the RSI. Okay, if you have access, you can go on tradingview.com and you can get into the charts yourself. This is all free. There are paid options, but I don't think you necessarily need them. Right. One other thing just to draw attention to is the DXY, which is The dollar index, guys, the dollar index as a crypto holder is actually looking quite good, right? What I've seen here is this big old head and shoulders developing, okay? And what does that mean for us? Well, in terms of this is a very bearish pattern, guys. It's come up, it's retraced, and if it was to fall, then this is going to carry on the downtrend, and this will see us falling significantly. If this significantly falls, things like Bitcoin investments, Ethereum investments are looking really, really strong. Still some really great news coming for Ethereum this year. I still think that there's going to be fantastic upside for Ethereum. Guys, if you have a prediction for Ethereum for this year, make sure you leave your Ethereum prediction down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your targets. Do you think it's going to continue further to the downside, or are you pretty confident that 1450 is the bottom and we're going to be coming back up to the upside? Guys, thanks very much for today. Hope you've enjoyed the content, and I will see you tomorrow with another update. Thank you. And bye.